What's up, everyone? I'm Steve, and welcome to another episode of Millionaire Habits. I've spent years hiring people, and I generally had a pretty good idea within the first 5 minutes of the interview whether this was going to work or not. So in this video, I'm going to tell you 10 very basic but very crucial tips on how to interview well and put yourself instantly above virtually any other job candidate. Are you ready? Let's go. And before I start, a quick shout out to my newsletter. Link will be in the description below. You'll get 2 emails a week all about the skills you need to make more money than you can ever imagine. Again, link in description below. Sign up, unsubscribe anytime you want, but I have a feeling you won't want to. Okay, let's dive right in here. Tip number 1, dress the part. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you need to wear a suit and a tie or something overly formal. But dressing up at least a little bit, yeah, that is going to go a long way to impress your interviewers. You wouldn't believe how many candidates I've had to interview who were wearing a t-shirt and jeans, sometimes even shorts. That shows extremely poor judgment. It shows that you're not taking that interview seriously, and chances are you're not going to get the job. So at least dress up a little bit. Just look nice. You don't have to be overly formal, but just look nice. That's really all there is to it. And number 2, just smile. You wouldn't believe how many candidates I've interviewed who looked like they wanted to kill themselves because they never smiled. They were tired. They looked like they were disinterested. And quite frankly, you're not doing yourself any favors if you look like that. So just smile. That kind of infectious positivity is going to make its way around the interviewing table, and that's going to bode well for you. So don't hesitate to smile during the interview. And number 3, carry a notebook. You don't actually have to use the notebook, but simply carrying a notebook is going to give across a very professional vibe to your interviewers. It means that you're organized and you can take notes if you have to. But if you walk in there empty-handed, a lot of hiring managers are going to notice that. Like nothing to write with, nothing to jot down notes. That's not a good look. So even if you don't use the notebook, go in there with one, and that's going to put off a very positive professional vibe. Number 4, talk job requirements. A lot of times the job requisition will mention specific skills or technologies or software products that you need to be familiar with in order to perform the job, like Microsoft Office, for example, or the agile software development process, or Cisco telephones, whatever it is, whatever you are interviewing for, use those specific skills, those specific requirements in your answer. Don't just say, yeah, I have 20 years of experience working with computers. If you need Microsoft Office experience, for example, say, I have 20 years working with Microsoft Office. I am an expert at Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. I've done all of these things with these software products. So whenever a job requisition requires specific skills, be sure that your answers speak to those specific skills and say them. Say those words. By saying the words, your interviewers are naturally just going to connect with the fact that you have this skill and we're looking for this skill, and you make it very, very easy for your hiring manager to connect those dots and think that you are a very qualified candidate. Number 5, always ask a question at the end. Whenever I interviewed, I would always at the very end say, do you have any questions for me? And a lot of times they would either say nope or I think you've already answered all my questions. That's not a very good answer. Always have a question ready. For example, what are the promotional opportunities available with this position? Or what are the priorities for the first 3 months for whoever gets hired in this position? That shows that you are actively interested, you are highly motivated to do this job and hit the ground running if you are hired. So always have that question ready and ask it at the end of the interview. Number 6, sometimes you'll get the question, why us? Or why do you want to work here? You won't get that all the time, but sometimes you will. And a lot of candidates get stumped on that question because they don't expect it. So give that some thought before you go into the interview. And the answer cannot be, I need a job, or I need money, or I just want to work. Those aren't good answers. Give something specific that relates in some way to that company. Maybe the company gives back in the community and you want to be a part of that, or their business revolves around something that you are an expert in. Those are good answers to that question. So make your answer specific and give it some thought before the interview. Number 7, admit to real weaknesses. A lot of times I would ask this question and the candidate would say, I think I'm equally strong in all areas. That is not a good answer. We all have weaknesses. We all know we have weaknesses. And quite frankly, if you give that answer to your interviewer, you're not fooling the hiring manager. You're simply avoiding the question. I have never said no to a candidate because they were honest with one of their weaknesses. So if you are asked that question, again, know what you're going to say and just be honest. The problem is when you say that you have no weaknesses, that instantly begins a trust issue between you and the hiring manager. Whenever I got an honest answer to that question, even if it was an answer I didn't like I have a problem with time management, for example. Time management's important, but if you were honest enough to tell me that at the very beginning, it's something as important as the interview, I know that you are going to be an honest person when you do your job. And that is something that I absolutely look for. Number 8, lay off the cologne or the perfume. Now, wearing a little is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I remember several candidates where, you can smell them down the hall. It's like they bathed in clove oil. And that is a very distracting element in the interview, especially because you're in typically a closed room and you're just smelling the candidate. You're smelling their cologne or their perfume. That's very distracting. So wear a little if that's your thing, that's fine, but don't go overboard. Be conservative with the cologne that you put on and you'll be fine. Number 9, don't bring your cell phone into the interview, or at the very least, make sure your phone is on silent. Whenever I went into interviews during my career, I would just leave my phone in the car. So there's no possibility of me accidentally getting a notification. Even if it vibrates in my pocket while I'm talking, it could distract me with the answer that I'm giving because I know I have a notification there. And that's not something that you want to do. So leave your cell phone in the car whenever possible, or at the very, very least, mute your phone, turn it on silent so there are no notifications whatsoever. And number 10, write a personalized thank you email after the interview. As a hiring manager, I did not get very many of these emails. I would just interview the candidate and off they went. We would never speak again unless the answer was yes and I hired them. But whenever I got an email, a nice, short, polite thank you email, that just puts that candidate right back into my head. And I've gone back to some of those resumes and re-looked at some of their qualifications because they took the time to write a very, very simple thank you email. So whenever you have contact information, consider writing a thank you email. And even if you don't have their contact information, ask for it at the end of the interview. A lot of times the hiring manager will simply give you a business card. And there you go. You have your name, their phone number, and their email address. You have all of their contact information for you to send a short, polite thank you email. So don't forget that step. And that is it. 10 tips to nail your next interview and put yourself on top of every other candidate. These are very, very basic interviewing tips, but you might be surprised at how many people simply get them wrong. Dress well, know your weaknesses. Don't be distracting with the jewelry that you're wearing or the cologne or the perfume. Leave your cell phone in the car. Answer your questions with specific terminologies that they're looking for. These are the things that are going to instantly put you on top of everybody else in the interviewing process. That's it, and we will see you next time. Peace.